I must be a huge fan of rock music, since I thought the band name was awesome. But the beating heart of Foo Fighters, a rock band that carried on the Nirvana tradition of suffering and rebirth, was Taylor Hawkins, with his thundering drumming, cheeky eyes, and flowing blonde hair. Taylor was more than just a clock. He was the fire, wild, magnetic, and occasionally reckless, but incredibly affectionate toward people he loved. On stage, Taylor exuded raw vitality, but off stage, he was a man who had fallen a lot. Addiction, the loneliness of being an artist, childhood horrors, and the pressure of being an unstoppable performance machine all plagued him. Fans throughout the world were deeply affected by his unexpected death in Colombia on March 25, 2022, just 1 hour before showtime. It left a massive hole in their hearts and tore the band to pieces. We must examine Taylor Hawkins' biography in order to see why he was more than simply a fantastic drummer, and why he represented an entire rock generation. Those who loved him still remember that unusual, but always fiery solo, which had its ups and downs. Early life. On February 17, 1972, Taylor Hawkins was born in Fort Worth, Texas. Out of the 3 children, he is the youngest. His family later relocated to Laguna Beach, California, when Taylor was just 5 years old. Although it is a lovely seaside town, there are many hidden tensions there. His father was quiet, tough, and psychologically aloof, just like most men in the 1970s. Conversely, his mother was always kind and caring, but she also had unspoken issues that all of the children had to learn to cope with. Taylor liked his mother, and believed she had the potential to be a great singer. He previously stated, "My mom had a dark side. When she passed out on the couch from exhaustion, it was my sister Heather who cooked dinner and took care of everything." He pretended to be performing as he stood in the living room, dancing and singing. The only one who clapped calmly was her. She was the first to believe he would succeed, and he was also extremely into drumming. However, his father showed little interest. According to Taylor, his father never truly acknowledged his abilities or passions. Perhaps because to Job and the emotional guardianship of an age that wasn't accustomed to displaying affection, he didn't intentionally do this. Taylor used music as an escape because she felt trapped. Before a neighbor allowed him to play an old drum kit, he described himself as a fat, dumb kid who failed at everything, wasn't good at school, wasn't athletic, and wasn't popular with other kids. His neighbor informed him, "You were born to play the drums." He was immediately enamored, and shortly after, the elder brother of one of his female friends enlisted in the military, leaving behind a collection of rock recordings. It transformed Taylor's life when he discovered Queen's News of the World in one of those dusty, corner-worn record sleeves. He was enthralled with John Williams's expansive compositions, Roger Taylor's drumming, and the music from Star Wars and Superman. He claimed that he could feel the large, dramatic, emotionally charged noises with both his heart and his ears. During his high school years, Taylor led 2 different lives. He browsed the internet during the day and performed in various cover bands at night. He also practiced drumming by listening to Rush, Genesis, and the Police records. Although glam metal was popular at the time, Taylor enjoyed alternative music, particularly Jane's Addiction. He felt at once like he belonged somewhere because of their defiant, honest tone. Nobody could have predicted that this quiet kid, who struggled with practically everything, would use drumsticks to find his voice. Few were aware that he was a fierce performer on stage, but a very sensitive person off stage because of his modest, unhappy upbringing. Early career. Taylor Hawkins moved from Laguna Beach to Venice after graduating from high school, where he got immersed in the gritty street music scene. Young musicians there were searching for freedom through sound rather than fame. He formed the band Sylvia there with his pals. This small, raw group was obviously influenced by Jane's Addiction, but they were also full of instinct and hunger. One night, Sylvia performed at Club Lingerie, a little club in Los Angeles. Among the tiny group was a man named Stevie Salas. Sass Jordan, a Canadian vocalist who will open for Aerosmith on their European tour, needed a drummer. Salas enjoyed watching the long-haired drummer, who was full of energy and had a strong personality, but he didn't like the band overall. After the performance, he remarked, "I need someone who knows rock and alternative music because that kid seems weird." Even though he wasn't very good at what he did yet, Jordan claimed that he had a light and love shining from inside him. "I knew the moment he walked into the room," she said. "Some people send chills down your spine." Taylor Hawkins went on his first tour with Sass Jordan when he was just 22 years old, and he soon rose to fame on stage. Taylor was one of them. Scott Welch, who was managing Journey's well-known lead singer Steve Perry, saw Taylor while she was opening for him. Welch also worked with an up-and-coming Alanis Morissette, who had just finished her big hit record, Jagged Little Pill, and needed a drummer for her world tour. Taylor was asked to try out right away, and he and guitarist Chris Chaney quickly became key members of Alanis's live band. Following that, they embarked on an exciting 2-year tour, playing some of the biggest shows in the world. "I chose to play behind a solo artist because it was a real band, not just her show." Taylor Hawkins was just as noticeable as the lead singer, with his showman-like drums, blonde hair that was blown out, and striking good looks. He was more than just a drummer, helping to make versions of songs like "You Ought to Know," "Hand in My Pocket," and "Ironic, So Fiery." "I was able to play music with all of my heart because Alanis allowed me to be myself. I was just the backup drummer kid," Taylor stated after meeting Dave Grohl at KROQ's Almost Acoustic Christmas performance in 1995, which featured both Alanis Morissette and the Foo Fighters. "Dave was a pretty kind guy, but he was my Nirvana idol. They smoked and talked about Queen and the Police, and I knew then that I had met someone who was going to change my life. No one could have known at the time, but that was the beginning of one of the strongest friendships in rock history, and it also marked the beginning of a new chapter in Taylor Hawkins' life, as he would no longer be someone else's drummer, but the official drummer for the Foo Fighters." Breakthrough in career. In 1997, Dave Grohl called Taylor Hawkins and asked if he knew of any good drummers the Foo Fighters could hire once William Goldsmith left, and Taylor didn't hesitate. "F*******, yeah, I'll do it," he said in a short, powerful, and passionate voice. When Foo Fighters were still a new band on the rise, Alanis Morissette had already taken over the world, but he didn't choose rock for the money. Rather, he did it because the music made him feel alive. On April 19, 1997, he played his first show with Foo Fighters in secret at the Alligator Lounge in Santa Monica. From there, he traveled with the band through all of their phases of development, from being skeptics in the media to thrilling stadium shows. Dave, the former drummer for Nirvana, knew exactly what he wanted from Taylor because Taylor had looked up to Grohl since he was a teenager. Taylor gave the band a new spark. By the early 2000s, Foo Fighters were making waves. Taylor played on the album There Is Nothing Left to Lose for the first time as the official drummer, though he only played on parts of it. He claimed that he was nervous in the studio because he had red light fever, which is worry that occurs when the recording light comes on. Before the release of the album One by One, 2002, which featured hits like All My Life and Times Like These, there were some tense recording sessions and a near breakup. Taylor Hawkins was not just a drummer. He co-wrote, organized, and helped define a sound that was exact and wild, combining the power of arena rock with a fierce sense of reality. Over the next few years, the Foo Fighters became one of the most well-known rock bands in the world, winning numerous Grammys, selling a ton of records, and performing at renowned venues like Wembley, Glastonbury, Lollapalooza, Rock in Rio, and more. Beyond his work with Foo Fighters, however, Taylor began writing his own songs, playing guitar, and singing lead. In 2006, he formed Taylor Hawkins and the Coattail Riders, a band that allowed him to express a different, funnier, and more open-minded side of himself. His albums Get the Money and Red Light Fever demonstrated that he was not just a great drummer, but also a great guitarist in every way. He also joined a number of side groups, including NHC with members of Jane's Addiction, Birds of Satan, and the cover band Chevy Metal. For nearly 25 years, Taylor Hawkins played on every major Foo Fighters record, from In Your Honor to Concrete and Gold to Medicine at Midnight. 2021, which he once described as weird, experimental, and exhilarating. He was the heart and soul of the show, telling stories, performing, and occasionally taking Dave Grohl's place to sing lead. Often, the highlights of every show were his renditions of Queen songs like Under Pressure, Somebody to Love, and Rock and Roll. One of the world's most well-known drummers, Taylor Hawkins never lost the spirit of the house band. He was always creating music and didn't hesitate to be wild. Playing the drums was not just a job for him. It was the only way he could be himself. Every show, beat, and laugh he made became a part of a musical legacy that will never be replaced because that's how he lived his life. Strains and addiction. Taylor Hawkins joked that if he weren't the drummer for Foo Fighters, he would probably be carrying pizzas. That half-joking remark wasn't just modesty. It demonstrated something genuine. He never considered himself an untouchable rock star. Taylor always felt like he was searching for something, whether it was fame, love, or simply the freedom to be himself, and he sometimes pushed himself too far because he never stopped running. The Foo Fighters began to gain popularity in the late 1990s, and they began to play constantly, one tour after another, complete with planes, rooms, stages, noise, and the need to maintain rock energy night after night. In 2001, after attending a party in the UK and seeing a show at the V Festival, Taylor took too much heroin. Not even his family knows for sure what happened. By the next morning, he was not awake. The doctors said he was in a deep sleep. Those who knew him well remember it as if it were yesterday, but Dave Grohl was accustomed to it after living through the fame and sadness of Nirvana. Taylor was shocked by it because he had just gone from being Alanis Morissette's backup drummer to a full-time member of a rising international band. He had already lost Kurt Cobain, and it appeared that he might lose another brother, but when Taylor woke up, he saw himself for the first time, and he wasn't a different person immediately. "I love doing drugs, but I lost control," he said later. His friend, bandmate, and boss, Dave Grohl, sat next to his hospital bed and waited for a moment that felt like it had happened before. "I nearly lived up to the belief that if you live fast, you die young. I gradually improved." He quit smoking, began exercising, and developed a mountain riding obsession. Even though it was a healthier kind of addiction, it demonstrated his constant search for anything to satisfy his cravings. He made an effort to lead a more regular life, spent more time with his family, and received more attention for his health. However, being motionless for an extended period of time can irritate an artist who is constantly on the go. In his 40s, Taylor began to worry about the limits of his physique. He claimed that his body, not the lights, was the reason he was afraid to be on stage. When he told Rolling Stone, "I'm no longer 25. I have to keep up with people 20 years younger every time I go on stage. It's like a battle of my own age." People in his immediate vicinity began to notice changes in 2018. His longtime drum tech, Yeti, recalled a period of time when Taylor appeared completely exhausted, lost a lot of weight, and had trouble sleeping. He never said anything negative in public, but he appeared anxious all the time, ate less frequently, and exercised less. Small modifications included a slower talking voice, eyes that gazed down, and occasionally a lull in the laughter. Foo Fighters had a packed schedule and went on tour again in late 2021 following COVID. One night on an airplane, Taylor fainted and needed to be revived with intravenous water. Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Chad Smith claims that when Taylor failed to show up for the Abu Dhabi gig, he was forced to confront the most pressing issue of all, his health. Shortly after, close pals claimed that Taylor requested Dave Grohl and the band's managers for a more relaxed tour schedule in a private conversation. He stated, "I can't go at this speed any longer. We need to work something out." But no formal demands were accepted by the Foo Fighters team. Either no one raised their voice, or they claimed it was merely a private idea and not a formal inquiry. The important thing is that despite his fatigue, Taylor never quit up. "I hired a trainer," he exclaimed joyfully to Yeti at the beginning of 2022. According to those who knew Taylor well, he genuinely wanted to get back on track in order to maintain his health and regain equilibrium. However, the body may not heal as quickly as it should. Despite his experiences in the dark, Taylor Hawkins still had invisible scars on his body that were impossible to remove. He led an honest life as an artist, despite the cacophony of his drumming. At times like this, it's also difficult to predict the cost of truth. Personal life. Taylor Hawkins was never the kind of performer to share details of his personal life with the world. He didn't work in the media or get involved in any romantic affairs. Additionally, he rarely discussed personal matters on talk shows. However, those who knew him well described Taylor as a devoted family guy who led a modest life that seemed almost odd considering his level of fame. When Taylor was at the pinnacle of his game with the Foo Fighters, in 2005, he married Allison. For almost 17 years, she has been by his side. Allison supported him from the stage to the backstage area, even though they did not walk the red carpet together. Together, they had 3 kids. The song, Middle, from Taylor's solo album Get the Money was inspired by their daughter Annabelle. In it, he discussed some of the most intimate aspects of being a father in the suburbs. Get the Money was a succinct, straightforward statement rather than merely a pleasant side activity. In addition to being the drummer for a well-known rock group, Taylor also drove his children to school, played guitar in the shed at night, and occasionally joined friends on drums at parties. "I know I'll never be a Freddie Mercury or a Dave Grohl, but I can be a good dad, a funny husband, and a nice neighbor. That's enough for me," he stated. When Taylor wasn't on tour, he lived in Topanga Canyon, California, which was peaceful and forested. The hills continued on, and the air had a piney scent. There, he constructed a modest home workshop where he worked on projects, by himself, with friends, and occasionally for pleasure. When he was riding his bike in the morning, his neighbors stated he was always cheerful and never behaved like a rock star. However, Taylor was a sensitive artist and had certain concerns. He claimed that his job was too much for him in a rare interview. Taylor quietly loved his wife, his family, and his fans. "People think I'm sure of myself and in charge when I'm on stage, but most of the time all I want to do is go home, watch cartoons with my daughter, and be with my wife." He was well known for always signing signatures, never turning down a photo, and, most importantly, never undervaluing the affection of his admirers. Before he passed away, a well-known tale circulated about Emma Sophia, a 9-year-old girl, performing for her idol outside of his hotel using a toy drum kit. In addition to taking a picture, Taylor spoke with her, offered her encouragement, and gave her what many described as the day's sweetest grin. It was supposed to be her worst day, and Taylor made it her best. He didn't need large platforms or accolades to be remembered, according to others who knew Emma. In addition to being a fantastic drummer, Taylor Hawkins created an impression by living his life with people as though music were genuine, simple, and heartwarming. He would, for instance, offer someone a pat on the back, say something kind to them, or embrace his daughter in the middle of the night. Previous years. When he was in his 50s, Taylor Hawkins was not the flamboyant young man who rushed across the stage with his hair blowing in the wind. Even though his body and mind were sending him distress signals, he still had a wonderful life energy about him, and could still stir people up when his drum started playing. Taylor was more conflicted than ever when Foo Fighters returned with the album Medicine at Midnight and the horror comedy film Studio 666 following the COVID-19 outbreak. His life revolved on music, therefore he wanted to continue, but his long hours were mentally and physically taxing him. He claimed that he was less confident than he once was, and that he was afraid of the stage. After losing consciousness on a flight to Abu Dhabi in late 2021 and needing 4 fluids to revive her, she said, "I'm not the 25-year-old kid anymore. Every show feels like a race. I'm just trying to survive." The performance was canceled. That incident appeared to be a sign. Chad Smith, drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers, claims that Taylor held a serious conversation with Dave Grohl and the band's managers, telling them, "I can't keep doing this. We need to make changes." 7:40 p.m. An ambulance arrived.